Have you ever seen a second channel as successful as MoreSidemen on YouTube? Sidemen Among Us has literally got over 5 million views in each of the last 3 videos. And literally everyone is talking about it. But the genius behind this is actually not the Sidemen, and it's their editor, CHiPFAT. He has such a unique way of editing that keeps people watching and engaged for literally hours. And I'm going to reveal exactly how he does it by showing you the theory of his editing techniques and the application of how he does it inside the editing software. Starting off with maybe the most important point, making chaos easy to follow and watch. I hate to think what the raw footage of these videos looks like. Everyone talking over each other and shouting, probably. Different theories, different storylines, and so much more going on. It must be absolute chaos. But in order for an audience to be able to enjoy this, first they need to be able to understand it. The obvious way he does this is with the names and labels, so the audience is always in on who is playing. But he also does this by making sure we are always focusing on one person at a time in the video, so we can fully understand what they are saying. It reminds me of a teacher in a group debate, one person at a time, but it's actually really true. We almost never get a grid of lots of people all talking at the same time. And on the few occasions he does use a grid, it's used in a non-chaotic way like this, with one person in the middle talking and the others reacting. But by doing this, it could run the risk of being a bit boring and slow, so how does Chip keep it engaging? There are also no gaps in conversation or even slight pauses, and he does this with L and J cuts, which means the conversations flow a lot better, and once one person stops talking, the next one instantly comes in. Or even if we want the conversation to be a bit more abrupt and argumentative, you can even start the new person talking before the other person ends. And a quick little tip, if you're in a rush with your edits, you don't always have to do L and J cuts, you can just underlay one clip or overlay one clip, and then there's less cutting and it's less fiddly. I guess it turns it into a bit of a Z cut or an S cut. But what really takes this to the next level, but is incredibly simple, is the slow, subtle zooms. They're continuous and nearly on every face cam shot. This adds to the pacing and gives the viewer the feeling that something is always happening and progressing, whilst also making you pay attention and listen to what is being actually said. So this would all mean nothing if he wasn't able to tell great stories, and more importantly, control the story. As an editor, it's so important to remember that we have all of the control. So we need to use it. With so many different storylines in the raw footage of these videos, some that probably aren't very engaging or just peter out into nothing, and some that are really funny and entertaining, Chip picks only the best couple to tell, and then anything that doesn't belong to those storylines has to go. We need to murder our darlings. Even if it's really funny, it will still interrupt the flow and storytelling of the video. And it's much more important to engage viewers in a story rather than just getting a quick laugh. Even though the quick laugh can be more satisfying to edit, it needs to be cut. A great example of this storytelling is the clip right here, with Harry listening in, which is the setup to is Simon or Deji the killer. We then have the conflict of the next round not knowing where to vote, and then the resolution of Simon being the jester and Harry realizing he didn't hear what he thought he heard. Perfect storytelling. It's so simple, but so effective. Setup, conflict, resolution. And there may have been funny moments within that game that had to be cut because they slow down the whole story. Of course, CHiPFAT can do amazing effects. We've seen this in his previous edits. But in the Sidemen Among Us videos, it's his storytelling that really shines through. But the application of how he edits is also really important. The subtle zooms on the face are obviously quite self-explanatory. You just use the scale, 100 to say 105, depending on how long the clip is. But if you want a quicker way to do this, you can use an adjustment layer. Use the transform effect on top of the adjustment layer, else it won't work. Then set scale 1 to say 200 and make that adjustment layer really long. Then we just need to cut the start of that adjustment layer and then put it over all of those little clips, and we no longer need to scale in any of the clips. Or alternatively, we can create a preset as well.
He also uses these tracked zoom shots. And here we have to hop into After Effects, but don't worry, it's really easy. So on the left is the composition and on the right is the layer. We're going to want to go to the tracker panel. So we first go to stabilize motion, and then it will give us this tracking point. We want this to be on a point of high contrast, so an area of light and an area of dark together. I find that nostrils are perfect for this, so I always track people's nostrils, and then click play and it will track it all for you. And then we just need to position and scale it how we want so that we don't have any of these areas of black where the image is going off screen. And then you're done. And this just makes the shots a bit more engaging, but don't overuse it because it can become a bit much.
But there is also something that makes Chip's edits look really unique: the easing of his keyframes. His edits feel very flowy and nothing is coming to an abrupt stop. It's easing in and easing out. You can ease your keyframes in both Premiere and After Effects. However, it is slightly easier in After Effects. If you've never tried easing your keyframes before, I would start out really basic with ease in and ease out in Premiere Pro and easy ease in After Effects. Once you then add these to your clips, you can go into the graph editor and have a look and see how it has manipulated your keyframes to make them ease in and ease out. This will show you that the object is either slowly moving in at the start and then speeding up, or slowing down at the end before coming to a stop. However, you can also use plugins for Premiere and After Effects to get similar results. Easify 2 Pro for Premiere Pro and After Effects, or Flow for After Effects. These will give you standard preset graphs that you can drag and drop onto your keyframes, which speed things up a lot, rather than having to dive in and tweak your speed or value graph every single time you want to change the easing on your keyframe. But another thing that people don't really think about is how can Chip work with so many cameras from so many different creators all at once. Multicam sequences can make this so much easier because it means that you can have 10 cameras all in one sequence to flick through. You do this by dragging all of your clips onto the timeline and then syncing them together with the audio. Then nest all of these clips together and go to Enable Multicam Sequence. And if you ever want to just edit one camera from the sequence, you can always go back into the nest and change it. With the audio, you can either have the audio attached to each camera, so when you change a camera, the audio will change, I believe is what Chip does, because a lot of the creators have different audio. Or if it's more of a studio setup, which obviously doesn't apply to many of Chip's videos in Among Us, you can then have the audio as the same, so the audio will be linked to the multicam sequence, but will not change the audio as you change the camera. And then this makes it so much easier for you to flick through different cameras and see which camera is best to be using at that time, rather than having to file through 10 different layers on a timeline. And finally, this one goes a bit beyond editing, because Chip isn't just editing the videos. He has some extra spice, that little cherry on top. He's creating a whole experience and community around these videos, with updates on videos and constantly teasing when they will be coming out and how the edits are going. His whole Twitter is literally dedicated to Among Us and Arsenal. Come on, you gunners. But this creates a whole different excitement and hype for the videos, and you just have to sit down and watch them.
With food. People only watch what I eat. You have to get a meal.
And by the way, I have been talking about this Chip and not this one, although I have done an editing breakdown on the other Chip too. And if you want to go and watch that video, you can click right here.